Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and really get to the heart of the information that matters. Today we're taking a deep dive into a pretty compelling, sometimes unsettling world built by a major public figure. Our main source today is an analysis from a YouTube video. It's called Candace Owens' Cult of Conspiracy Theorists. They'll believe anything she says. From the Aquarius Waive channel. And our goal really is to unpack the psychology behind these kinds of narratives. How does a cult of personality actually form, especially now, online? We're going to use one specific, very controversial claim to look at this.
Yeah, the claim that really ticked off this whole discussion in the source material, the assertion about Brigitte Macron's identity. Let's dive right in there. The analysis really focused on this specific claim about Brigitte Macron saying it's had a life of its own. As we get into this, maybe you can think about what makes a claim like that, something so out there, actually get traction.
It's pretty wild. The core claim Candace Owens made, apparently over like an 8 or 10 part series.
Oh, how many? Yeah, each about an hour long. She claimed Brigitte Macron isn't just a man, but actually Emmanuel Macron's father. And then later, it sort of evolved into the idea that he's Brigitte's brother pretending to be his sister. I mean, even if you're open-minded, that sounds, well, like a bit of a stretch, doesn't it?
A huge stretch, absolutely. Yeah. Even for people used to complex theories. But how does something like that gain any traction? Because the source material pointed out something really striking, a big shift in her language. She started out super bold, right? Think, you're going to die as a man. But now it's more like, what if, or perhaps, or that's just my theory. What happened there? What caused that change?
Well, according to the analysis, that shift seems directly connected to a pretty hefty defamation lawsuit she's facing. We're talking over 200 pages of legal documents. Okay. And, to prove defamation, you usually need to show malicious intent. Like, did the person know it was false, or did they just run with it even when shown contradictory stuff? The analysis really suggests that this language change isn't humility. It's more likely a strategic move because of the legal heat, probably after talking to a lawyer, you'd think. Our source material also talked about, why someone might double down even when facing a loss. Two main reasons, really.
Okay.
Either they genuinely believe it, like really, truly believe it, or there's something they gain that outweighs even that fear of the lawsuit. And that clear pivot to cautious language, perhaps what if, instead of the earlier certain. It strongly points towards that second explanation, that it's strategic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the word cult, it brings up certain images, right? Like you said, white robes, maybe a desert compound, some guru figure.
Exactly.
But this deep dive suggests that today, especially online, it looks different. How are these cult of personality showing up now? Yeah,
it's a really interesting point. The idea of a cult of personality seems to have really found its footing in the digital age. Andrew Tate, for example, was mentioned as someone who's built up this, the source called it a cult-like base, where followers just take whatever he says as absolute fact. No questions asked, no checking it out for themselves.
And that ties right back to this idea of the world constructed by Candace Owens. The analysis suggests her audience is kind of conditioned to just rely on her as the single source of truth. They stop doing their own thinking.
Precisely. And you see this behavior where followers will defend the leader to the very bitter end. There was this anecdote mentioned from that documentary, Wild Wild Country, about the Rajneeshi.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Followers would accept anything Osho or Sheila said, even something totally absurd, like the sky is green and filled with grass. It's like accepting a whole new reality, a new paradigm entirely, which brings up a really interesting point from the analysis. Why doesn't someone like Candace Owens use words like allegedly? You'd think that would offer some protection, right?
Yeah, legally, maybe.
Maybe, but the suggestion is it's about maintaining that illusion of absolute authority. She needs to be seen as the one with the whole. If she suddenly starts saying allegedly, it just takes away the authority aspect. It shatters that image of her being the supreme leader, the final word on everything.
Yeah, I need to be the supreme leader, the arbiter of truth.
Yeah.
It definitely points towards a deeper psychological angle, doesn't it? Let's dig into that. What did the source suggest about the psychology behind leading these kinds of groups? Any links to personality traits?
Yeah, the source material brought up a view specifically stated as non-clinical, mind you, but from a previous video, Owens herself discussed suggesting she fits the profile of a malignant narcissist.
A malignant narcissist. What does that mean in this context?
Well, narcissism here is explained as a kind of defense mechanism, a personality disorder that often starts in childhood, usually rooted in feelings of shame or disconnect. So they feel this deep need to construct an identity, a persona, to protect them. It's not just loving yourself, it's this core belief that they have to center. And this apparently leads to this kind of hollow side. So there's a constant need for affirmation, for validation from others. That's the narcissistic supply that fuels their ego.
Right.
Which is why, according to this analysis, someone like Owens is driven by what it means about her, not just, say, money. And her apparent confidence is directly linked to the larger the crowd.
That idea of a hollow inner state and needing constant affirmation, wow. It makes you think about how that could shape the kinds of stories or narratives they latch onto. What did the deep dive say about the connection between these traits and conspiracy theories?
It's a crucial distinction, not all. But the analysis suggests narcissists often show a tendency into leaning towards conspiracy. Why? Well, maybe because of underlying paranoia, but also this strong desire to be the purveyor of truth, the one who holds the hidden truths nobody else sees.
So it feeds that need to be special, to be the authority.
Exactly. And they often take it a step further with the narrative. Like we discussed with the Brigitte Macron story, it wasn't enough for her to be a man. It had to become father, then brother. Each step gets more extreme, draws more attention, reinforces their unique position. And this also feeds into that all publicity is good publicity mindset you sometimes. For someone needing that narcissistic supply, even negative attention works. It confirms they're being seen, being heard.
So controversy is actually welcomed.
It seems so. It feeds energy into their persona, cements their role as the truth teller for their followers, even if the truth shifting or getting more extreme.
So given that dynamic, how does that influence the actual topics these figures choose to focus on?
Well, the analysis suggests that leaders like Owens tend to pick topics that generate worship, devotion, allegiance. Things like the Brigitte Macron theory really hook people emotionally.
Right, they're sticky.
Very sticky. And they often choose these over what the source called actual stories, things happening to, say, Nigerian Christians or Syrian Christians or the Druze, which might be factually important but don't necessarily build that same kind of fervent following. The chosen topics let the leader claim that vital role of purveyor of truth, which is essential to the whole.
Okay, so we've talked about the leader's psychology, the narratives they build, but what about the other side of the followers? What makes people gravitate towards these worlds? What makes them susceptible?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The material suggests followers are often genuinely seeking truth. They're looking for a direction, maybe feeling lost or let down.
Especially if they already distrust the mainstream.
Exactly, especially if there's a deep distrust of the system or if they've kind of foregone that logical reasoning process.
Yeah.
The leader then provides just enough truth there to where they'll buy the entire slew of lies. It cleverly taps into pre-existing notions and fears they already harbor. And the source gave some pretty potent examples, like how Candace Owens has managed to attract even groups you wouldn't expect, like neo-Nazis, by sometimes echoing narratives like the Jews controlled the world.
Wow.
The person doing the analysis even shared a personal story about falling down the rabbit hole themselves, starting with something like the Zeitgeist documentary and ending up in full fandom of an Alex. It shows how easy it can be to get pulled in if you're not careful. The analysis even broke down the followers into groups. You've got the core cult-like following, the really hardcore believers, then the devotees, maybe slightly less intense, but still very loyal, and then the occasional watcher spectator.
The ones maybe just there for the drama.
Kind of, yeah. Drawn to the drama and the salacious stuff more than the boring factual information. But the point is, all these groups, in their own way, feed the leader and that ego, that need for supply.
Which brings us back to the lawsuit again. If you're a follower, how do you process the fact that your leader, your source of truth, is being sued for defamation?
It's fascinating. According to the source, when someone like Owens gets sued, it often doesn't register as a problem for the core followers. Instead, it becomes confirmation. They'll say, see, they're trying to silence her, be truth.
So the lawsuit actually reinforces their belief.
In many cases, yes. And the analysis pointed out how Owens apparently lied about not receiving anything related to the lawsuit initially, and how she moved the goalpost when confronted with evidence. This just further shields the followers from the actual facts of the case. And this kind of defensive reaction when found out, it mirrors what was seen with figures like Osho and Sheila in Wild Wild Country. You might see narcissistic rage, coercion, manipulation. They have to cling to the story because letting it go means losing that allegiance.
So they create new narratives to explain away the problems.
Exactly. Like Andrew Tate claiming the Matrix is after me to explain his legal issue. It maintains the victim narrative, keeps the followers loyal. The source even mentioned an incident with Jordan Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
Peterson spoke out against psychopathic individuals infiltrating a political movement Owens aligns with. And almost immediately, Owens apparently put out an episode just trashing him, slandering him. It shows that quick defensive reaction to perceived threats to her image and narrative.
It's a really complex picture. leader. So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for us, for you listening? How should we approach information, especially from powerful, charismatic voice?
I think the core message from the analysis, the real takeaway, is the call for critical thinking. The presenter literally said, don't just take my word for it, do your own damn deep dives.
Right. Don't outsource your thinking.
Precisely. It's a plea, really, for all of us, for you listening, to question the narratives you encounter. Look for those inconsistencies. Remember that in the digital age, receipts live forever. The information to cross-check is often out there.
So today we've really peeled back the layers on how these cults of personality operate now, online. We've looked at the leader psychology, the follower's mindset, how narratives are built and defended. It's a lot to take in, but definitely important to understand in today's world.
And maybe a final thought. In this environment, information flies fast in our own sense by tangled up and follow. How can you make habit? How do you actively present it? Really protect